My challenge to you is to start believing. The mind is very, very powerful. You can actually trick your mind into believing something so that it actually comes out that way. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Annie B. And today what I'd like to talk about is how to get rid of those limiting beliefs. Some of us have had limiting beliefs for years and years and years and years. I told you my story. I had a limiting belief that hung around for literally 28 years. I did not discover this limiting belief until I was on an artist retreat. One of the assignments that we had to do as artists on this retreat was to think about our stories as artists and talk about our stories within the hero's journey framework. And that's when I discovered that I was stuck in this abyss for literally 28 years. And I was thinking, gosh, why am I stuck in this abyss for 28 years? I was thinking and I was racking my brain. And then it dawned on me. When I was 7 years old, my dad said something to me that sort of planted this limiting belief in my unconscious mind. When I told my dad that I wanted to be a movie star when I was 7 years old, he said to me, "Oh boy, that's a tough business." And his response to me when I was 7 years old had such a massive impact on my psyche that it actually served as a limiting belief for the next 45 years of my life, because at that time I was 7 years old. I didn't start my journey as a singer-songwriter until years later, and that's when the 28 years of that belief really having an effect on my life really kicked in. The point is that the limiting belief was there for a very, very, very long time. And so when I finally discovered this limiting belief when I was in my early 50s, what did I do about it? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. How did I deal with it? How did I get rid of it? How did I rip it apart? Because the roots had grown very, very, very deep. The roots had been growing for literally 45 years. And the trees and the branches of this limiting belief had been growing for 45 years. And they really started growing when I first embarked on my career as a singer-songwriter. And then when I finally discovered that I had this limiting belief, that's when I had to tear the whole thing down. I had to rip up the tree by its roots and put it through a wood cutter and make sure that I got rid of the whole thing and replaced it with positive beliefs. And that's the trick, actually, because when you have something that is functioning at an unconscious level, you can't just say, "Oh, don't think this." When somebody says to you, "Don't think of a pink elephant," of course, the first thing you're going to think of is a pink elephant, because your unconscious mind cannot process things in the negative. You can't say, "Oh, don't think about missing that high note," or "Don't think about botching up that riff or run," when I'm talking to my vocal students. You can't say to your brain, "Don't think this," because you're going to be thinking about that. You can't say to your brain, "Don't think about a blue potato chip," because the knot actually does not register in the brain, because you're going to be thinking about a blue potato chip. Well, there is such a thing as a blue potato chip. At least a blue tortilla chip isn't there. Anyway, so the point is that you can't just erase something by saying, "Don't think about it." The way to get rid of something is with a replacement thought. So how did I replace this thought of the music business is a tough business? I had to start thinking thoughts like, the music business is a business that I can navigate. I couldn't say to myself, the music business is not a tough business, because the subject of that thought is the music business being a tough business. Okay. Again, the subconscious mind does not register things in the negative. So you have to replace that thought completely with something positive, like the music business is a business that I know I'm going to be able to navigate. The music business is a business that I'm going to be able to figure out. The music business is something that I can have fun learning about. So with our positive replacement thoughts, there's two schools of thought that we can have about this. And so this is something that I have to teach my students, my vocal students. So when my vocal students have a negative thought while they're singing their song, and they have tension that occurs if they're hitting a high note, for instance, the thought that they have normally would be, oh gosh, I'm feeling so tense trying to hit this high note. And so the thought that needs to replace that is, don't have tension. No, that's not the correct thought. The correct thought, in order to replace the thought of, I'm having so much tension right now, is I'm feeling so relaxed. I'm feeling so comfortable. This is fun. I'm feeling so free. It has to be something in the positive. Now, the other part of this equation is that you can't just lie to yourself. You can't just fool yourself, because oftentimes what happens when we're trying to say to ourselves all these positive thoughts, really in the back of our minds, we're thinking, oh, I'm just tricking myself. Well, okay, so to some extent, perhaps you're tricking yourself and it works, but you get to that point where just trying to trick yourself really isn't going to work, because you feel like you're lying to yourself. Sometimes you can psych yourself out. You know what I mean? You can psych yourself out into thinking that this positive stuff is actually happening, and then you actually make the positive stuff happen, and because you're psyching yourself out. You can actually make the positive stuff happen because you're psyching yourself out. That happened to me years ago, back in Reno, when I played on a ski hill. It was freezing outside, and so I was telling myself, actually I was saying this over the mic, oh gosh, it's such a beautiful day today. It's so warm. I feel like I'm on a beach, because my fingers were freezing up, right? And, you know, when your fingers are freezing up, you can't feel the strings and you're not sure if you're playing the right chords. So I really had to work hard to kind of psych myself out and trick my brain into thinking I was warm. And I actually never got to the point where my fingers got so cold that they were numb and I couldn't feel the strings, because I kept on tricking my brain. I'm so warm. I feel like I'm actually playing on a beach today. And sometimes it's mind over matter, really. Mind over matter is actually a true statement. And this works with practice. It takes practice. And sometimes if you haven't had enough practice doing this, there's other thoughts that you can have to replace the negative thoughts. And so the other type of positive thought that you could have that can actually function very well as a replacement for those negative thoughts are thoughts like this. I know this is getting better. I know I'm going to be able to hit this note. I'm on my way to hitting this note. I am having fun learning how to hit this note. I am having fun learning how to do this. I am on my way to being successful on this. This is such a wonderful journey. These are the kind of thoughts that you can have when you're not quite ready to jump into psyching yourself out and almost lying to yourself and tricking your brain. The kind of thoughts that you can have when you're not ready to do that are the thoughts that are saying, I know I'm working on this. I know that I'm going to be able to hit this high note very soon. I'm working on this. So these are the kind of thoughts that you can have that are still positive and you can believe them. The thing with psyching yourself out and saying, oh, I know I can do this. This is going to be amazing. when you don't really believe it, the problem with that is that you don't believe it in your heart. Somehow it worked for me that day when I was on that ski hill. And that's when I learned that you can actually trick your mind into believing something so that it actually comes out that way. I actually did not get to the point where my fingers were so numb that I couldn't feel my guitar strings that day, because I psyched myself out. I told myself, it's so warm out here. I'm having so much fun. It's such a beautiful, warm day. Thank goodness at least the sun was out, so it was a little bit easier for me to trick myself into believing that it was warm out. But in order to move forward, if you're not ready to have the thoughts where you're just ready to jump in and almost lie to yourself, perhaps. It feels like that sometimes. So the thoughts that you can have when you're not quite ready to psych yourself out, you're not ready to just say those things, it feels like you're lying to yourself. Those are the other thoughts that you can have. I know I'm working on this. I'm having so much fun. I know I'm moving forward. I know that this is feeling better than last time. I'm moving forward. I keep learning. Those are the kind of thoughts that you can have to replace the negative thoughts. Ideally, the thoughts that you want to have are those thoughts where you're actually saying, oh, I'm feeling so warm out. And you know that you're actually tricking yourself. But you can trick yourself. That's how the unconscious mind works. Now, this takes practice. This is not something that you can just start doing and all of a sudden it's going to work. But the mind is very, very powerful. There's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he tells the story of a little boy who was diagnosed with cancer. And the little boy was telling the good cells in his body to attack the cancer cells. And he believed it in his heart. And actually, that's what ended up happening. His mind told his body to have the healthy cells attack the cancer cells. And the cancer cells actually died because the healthy cells were attacking them, because the boy told the healthy cells to attack them. It was a mind over matter thing, and perhaps it was an isolated case at that time. But Dr. Joe Dispenza continues to work in this area of this mind over matter thing, and he's been very successful. So why can't this work for all of us in all the different areas of our lives? My challenge to you is to start believing. Start believing in the things that you want. Start believing that you can do the things that you want to do. Start believing that you can have success in the areas of your life that you want to have success with. If you don't believe it yourself, then that is the first hurdle that you have to jump over. If you have all the skills that you need in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve, but you don't believe that you can achieve them, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you're not going to achieve those goals. So I challenge you this week to put yourself in a mental space where you can start believing the things that you want for your life. This is a practice. It's not something that just you can just try it a couple times and it's going to work. This is a practice that you have to start implementing into your daily routine. Every night, you might want to say an affirmation so that you can go to sleep with these affirmations that while you're sleeping, they're going to be reinforced into your unconscious mind. The thoughts that you have right before you go to sleep can be very, very powerful, because when you go to sleep, that's when your unconscious mind is sort of working on everything. And that's why sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night with this thought, or you wake up in the early hours of the morning with some little epiphany. So be careful what you pay attention to and what you think about before you go to sleep. Do this for some homework this week. When you go to sleep at night, I want you to start thinking about these positive thoughts. I can do this. I know I can do this. Whatever area you're working on in your life, I want you to focus on being able to do these things and being able to be successful in these areas of your life. Think about these things before you go to sleep. So that's your homework for this week. I want you to think about something that you can trick yourself into believing that you're going to be able to do it, and have these positive thoughts. Give yourself you have to do this for at least 30 days. It's not going to work if you do it for a day or two and forget about it, which frankly, I mean, most people, that's what they do. They try it one night, 2 nights, 3 nights. You're not going to remember to do it for 30 days unless if you really commit. And put a reminder in your phone, or put a reminder somewhere so that you're going to remember to do this for the next 30 days. And if 30 days isn't enough, maybe you need 60, maybe you need 90. But I want you to start thinking, this is what I am capable of. I know that I can have this in my future. And this is the first step to being able to achieve your goals, because first you have to have your mind right. Once you have your mind right, then all the actions that you take are going to be in alignment with your mind believing that all of the actions that you take are going to actually make a difference. That was my problem. I did a lot of stuff. I had success. I actually charted on airplane charts and all sorts of cool things that I did with my career back when I was stuck in the abyss for 28 years, but none of it mattered because I wasn't aligned with, this is who I am. This is the person that I am. This is who I am becoming. And so first you have to have this vision of yourself. This is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. If you got to psych yourself out, do it. And it's going to take practice. It's going to take a little bit of time. So with that, I appreciate you hanging out and watching this video today. Please like and subscribe and share with your friends. And I will see you next week.
Working hard and it's getting to nowhere in my running shoes. Had a blast last night when I saw you smashing out the blues.